Everybody, welcome to the press. Welcome to the second episode of this week. We're going to go a deep dive into the Open Championship. Royal Portrush starts tomorrow in Northern Ireland. We've got a lot to get through, a lot of names. The research was a little bit surprising in some regards with how many players are playing bettable quality golf, which kind of makes for an overload. So we had to kind of sift through that a little bit. We're going to do the best we can to get all that information to you in a good, tight show today. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. You can also check out the first episode of the week, where it's a little bit more field-based, a little bit more kind of off the top of your head based, first impressions, thinking about the week. This is a little bit more data-supported. This is a little bit more nerdy, but this is also my favorite show of the week that we get to do. So thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching this live stream, video after the fact, podcast, however you want to do it. But let's get into everything. We are at the Open Championship this week. We are playing Royal Portrush Golf Club on the Dunluce Links course. So there are two courses on the property. There's the Valley course as well. This one opened in 1933. It's the work of Harry S. Colt and J.S. Harrison. It was redone in anticipation of the 2019 Open a little bit with the work from Martin Ebert, and Hawtrey also helped as well. If you want to listen to Martin Ebert talk about this particular golf course and the work on it, our colleague Jay Flemma has a podcast with him. It's available out now, Jay Flemma Sports Report. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. This is in Portrush, Northern Ireland. It's kind of in the north middle of the 6 counties that make up Northern Ireland. It's right on the water. It's one of my favorite parts of the world. My son's actually named for the Carrick-a-Reed Rope Bridge, which is 30 minutes by car to the east, directly to the east along the shoreline. It's amazing. I'm so happy that's here this week. And there's a lot to be excited about. So, par 71. The same as last time. The difference in yardage from 2019 is about 30 or 40 yards. The RNA did a card to compare 19 versus 25. There really isn't a substantial difference, maybe a 1 tee added. That's really it. So not much of a difference here from 2019. Still a $17 million purse, same as last year, $3.1 million to the winner, 750 FedEx Cup points to the champion. With all that established, let's look at where we are now in the market as of this morning in terms of betting odds. Scotty Scheffler is still 11-2. Rory McIlroy is 15-2. I've seen that price actually kind of go up from a couple of different places. I've seen him at 650. So I assume there's quite a bit of action on him internationally, but every book's different, right? What they do in terms of their modeling and risk avoidance. But you would think that overseas books have a pretty good amount of business on McIlroy. Interestingly enough, and I think this is every reason not to bet him, Brad Faxon, who is his putting coach and works for Golf Channel, was on Live From today, and he said that McIlroy has not hit the first fairway in either of the practice days. And remember, he went out of bounds, made an 8 on the opening hole here in 2019, and basically just put himself behind the 8 ball and never recovered. If that's still in his head 7 years later, or 6 years later, but the 7th Open later, or 6th Open later, really, because they didn't play in 2020, then that's a problem. That's something to worry about. So that's kind of spooked me a little bit on talking about McIlroy as a guy to like this week. Rahm is 11-1, hasn't won this year, but he is a staple in the top 10 in LIV Golf. He had a furious comeback on Sunday at Valderrama. I don't see it as a comp course whatsoever. I don't see any value in playing Valderrama as a lead-in to the Open Championship, but that's the LIV schedule. Bryson's 20-1. Tommy Fleetwood's 20-1. Fleetwood was the runner-up here in 2019 to Shane Lowry. He's been playing great golf, had that close call at the Travelers Championship where he gave it away on the 72nd hole to Keegan Bradley. He's never won in the United States. He's had a good record overseas. If you're going to get one, you're going to get one here if you're Tommy Fleetwood. This is kind of Tommy or bust. If you're thinking about ever him winning a major, that this is it, I think. Xander Schauffele is the defending champion, and he's 25-1. You got Ludwig Aubert, who showed up out of nowhere after basically a summer of discontent to play pretty well at the Scottish Open. He's 25-1. Victor Hovland's been bet down. I saw him at 35-1. Told you to bet him. If you didn't get him ahead of time, the price has suffered. He had a good week at the Scottish Open. He's played well in the Open Championship the last 3 years. He is a relative horse for course type, tournament type this week. Gerald Hatton's 25-1. I've been talking about him with a lot of friends. I really like him at this number. He tends to kind of play rough, nasty golf pretty well. He, I think, will fare pretty well. We're going to talk about the weather a little bit later on in the show, but the weather forecast is not great The wind is supposed to kind of be the worst in the first 2 days, but it's basically going to rain every day. Every day. For the first 2 days, it's supposed to come out of the south, southeast, southeast, southwest. So a little change, but out of the south both days. The final 2 days supposed to come straight out of the northeast. So that's coming right off the water. It's going to make the finishing holes especially interesting. But either way, you got to be a mutter. You've got to be able to deal with crappy weather, crappy conditions, random outcomes. The downside to that for Hatton is if a wind gust gets him and throws it into the heather or God knows what, that could throw him off. But I think he is fine with just kind of being a malcontent as stasis, if that makes sense. Shane Lowry's 30-1. I can't bet that number, but I can bet Bobby Mack at 30-1. I've seen him in longer numbers. I would bet him as long as you could get him. He played well here in 2019. He plays well in national opens. He plays well in tough courses and tough conditions. He's a mutter. He loves it. I'm in on him. I'm out on on Morikawa at 35-1. Matt Fitzpatrick, I'm on at 40-1. I would like to see it a little bit longer, but I've seen quite a few number of people who tip online and just people I chat with that like Fitzpatrick this week. I think for good reason. He's been playing well. He can do this. Justin Thomas and Russell Henley are 50-1 with Sepp Straka. I like Straka, and I think a number of people have kind of come around to him. He plays well in windy places. He seems to handle those poor conditions well. He did very well at the Truist Championship when it wasn't so pleasant to play there in the final round at Philly Cricket Club. That's not to say it's an equal comp. Obviously, it's a different brand of golf, but I think he can handle this. Russell Henley's been playing very, very good golf. He's got the game to handle these kinds of conditions. Justin Rose has been bet down from 70-1. He's now 60-1. That's kind of surprising to me, but maybe this is his last hurrah, and people feel that based on what he did last year in this championship, contending also at the Masters, contending last week, at least sort of on the periphery, at the Scottish Open. Brooks Koepka 65-1. I'm going to leave him alone. I have a feeling he has a longer-term injury he's dealing with. Jordan Spieth is 65-1. Has technically played the Open Championship the best in the last decade. Do with that what you will. I will not. That is not actionable for me because the Jordan Spieth experience is not something I want to deal with. But maybe get on him at the halfway point and get a reduced price. Even then, I still think there's no sure thing in the Jordan Spieth world. Corey Connors and Adam Scott at 70-1 are both appealing to me. Scott, I think, recognizing that Father Time is coming for him. He's contended in multiple majors this year. Played well at the PGA, played well at the U.S. Open, kind of got screwed because of the weather issues at Oakmont. We'll see what happens there, but I think those are both guys that you can play. I would like probably Scott more because Connors just doesn't have the record for Open Championship golf to kind of back it up. Scott does. Here's our model top 10. We'll go into basically the top 96 players on the table, so the remaining 72 of them after this. But let's look at the modeling. You got Scotty Scheffler, number 1, Rory McIlroy, number 2, and Victor Hovland comes in at number 3, believe it or not. That's kind of crazy. I knew I had an inkling that he was going to play well. The modeling seems to kind of point that at. Tyrrell Hatton's 4th, Tommy Fleetwood's 5th, Xander Schauffele 6th, Bryson DeChambeau 7th, Corey Connors is 8th, and that's just because his ball striking tends to travel everywhere. Colin Morikawa is 9th, and John Rahm is 10th. One thing I do want to point out about the setup this week, one, grandstanding is not going to be your friend. If you've seen some of the pictures, I think Dylan DeChair sent this, of the drop zones where if you hit into the grandstands, you get to drop. The drop is not fun. It's like ferns and high grass. So trying to grandstand to get your way around here is not going to be a bargain. The other thing is the green speed setup is around 11. It'll probably be 10.5 toward the end of a lot of days. It'll probably slow down from that as well because grass grows throughout the course of the day. Even what you're taught is, it gets tougher throughout the day. No, it gets tougher throughout the day because of footprints and foot traffic, not because things get faster. They get slower. They get bumpier. There's actually a disadvantage in some ways to play in final groups and toward the back on weekends because you get all of the traffic and it all piles up in front of you, gets around the hole, gets in where you're going to putting. It's difficult. It doesn't make it easy. So they're running at about 11. They're going to run slower, especially once the rain hits. So to that end, I think they're going to take out some of the skill of putting to a degree. It's more of a lag putting contest and a can you hit it close contest. They're still going to be firm. They're still going to be fast. They're still going to be firm. They're not going to be fast. So expect bounce out. Expect having to play it on the ground and all that good stuff. But you're going to be able to kind of hit it a little bit more like a regular PGA Tour event than you could otherwise. But the challenge here is really tee to green. If you can't get off the tee, you're in deep, deep trouble here. And if you can't hit good second shots and you kind of find yourself in these tight corridors where you have really difficult pitch shots, a lot of mounding up and down. It's playable, it's accessible, you can play it on the ground, but it feels like it has some of the biggest mounding of any courses in the Open Championship rotation. Let's get back into some more betting odds. This number blew me away. I saw Hideki at 100 to 1 in an offshore book. He's 80 to 1 over at the Westgate in Las Vegas. Still a crazy number for a guy that's won a major and won this year already. Aaron Rai is 80 to 1, along with Patrick Reed, Matt McNeely, who I think is interesting. Ben Griffin is one of those guys who's just been playing great golf. He's cooled off a little bit, but is playing great golf. Jason Day has played this championship pretty well the last 5 years. Got to be honest with you. I think he's interesting at 90 to 1, and he looks really good in that Malbon stuff, which I don't typically like. Ryan Fox is 90 to 1. I think he's a compelling play. He was last week too. He's got 2 wins this year. Plays well in links conditions. He can hit the ball far enough. I think those are worthwhile plays at that number. Harry Hall's playing really good. I just can't back him to win a major championship when compared to those guys at that price. That's not good enough. Cameron Young, 101, is going to reel on a lot of people. He's just gonna do it. He plays well in majors, plays well in this championship. People are just pining for him to win his first tournament on the PGA Tour as a major championship. I will not bet him, but you can have a great time. Keegan Bradley's 100 to 1. I kind of mockingly said you should bet Keegan Bradley to win the Open Championship when he won the Travelers. I'm not firmly convinced that's a bad bet. I think he can do this. I mean, I think he can play this kind of gross mutter golf. But let's see. Let's not get too over enthusiastic. Guys like Taylor Pendrith, Marco Pendrith had a very nice Scottish Open's had a very nice season. Daniel Berger, the U.S. Open champion, is 100 to 1 in J.J. Spawn. All those guys I won't bet. Cam Smith's seen some action, and I would recommend it. He plays well in this championship. He's won this championship. He's played pretty well in LIV this year. Not as good as he was 3 years ago, certainly when he won the Open and then made the move to LIV. But he's in a good place. I think he's a worthwhile play. Wyndham Clark, 125 to 1. Apparently, he just got banned from Oakmont for his destruction of lockers, so he's not welcome back there. I think Pat Mayo put that out there, so shout out to Pat Mayo. Does a good job with his stuff on the betting side of things as well. Tom McKibben is an Ulsterman, 125 to 1. I think he's kind of faded into the background a little bit on LIV. I'm going to take no action on him. Tony Finau played well here in 2019, top 5 finish. I believe it was top 5 finish, 150 to 1. But I mean, he's got gadgets galore on the greens this week. I think he's in a bad headspace. Then you kind of get into some deeper mid-hundreds guys. You know, you get an Akshay Bhatia, Brian Harmon, a past winner here, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Smith, who's played this championship well a couple of different times, could be interesting, 150 to 1. You got a guy like an Andrew Novak, who's had a really, really good year and finally got a PGA Tour win with Ben Griffin down in New Orleans, has kind of backed off since then. I think he has the game to do really well in this championship. Could be an interesting top 20 play. I like Dean Burmester playing here at 200 to 1. Again, probably a top 20 or a top 10 play, not a win play, but he did play his way into this. Did go through the final qualifying, earned his way in. I appreciate that. Matt Wallace has been playing pretty well, but that's, again, relative to all the people who are sitting here at 200 to 1, I can't bet that number. Denny McCarthy at 200 to 1. I don't think this is his brand of golf, but he's been playing good golf lately. So do you want to bet that he can figure out a way to play Open Championship style golf that fits his game when his best skill is putting, and that's mitigated by slower greens to a degree? I don't know. That's up to you. Obviously, I'm biased in favor of Denny McCarthy because of the local connection, but yeah, that's an intriguing number on like a top 20 for me, but nothing more than that. Do you believe that Aldrich Potgieter can power his way around here? He's got to hit it awfully straight to do it, or he's hitting a bunch of 2-irons, which he can do, by the way. I think we may be underestimating him here. If you look back at when he played in last year's Sun City event, down the Nedbank Golf Challenge down in South Africa, he got around with a 2-iron in the wind just fine. Now, he wound up kind of falling apart in the end, but he got around just fine. He was a 100-to-1 shot then. He's a 200-to-1 shot now. This is not a long golf course for him. If he can just kind of keep it together in the wind and the crappy weather, he doesn't need to be particularly long to get around here. Makes him mildly interesting to me. I could talk myself into a pot Geeter bet here. And then this last slide of graphic of just guys who are super long shots. I'm not going to go through them all. Daniel Brown's kind of interesting to me. Has played this championship pretty well a couple of times. Bud Cauley has played very well this year. That price is probably too much for a guy trying to win his first of anything, right? But maybe a top 20 could be interesting for him. Then you get into the guys like Matteo Manacero, who's played pretty well lately, believe it or not. But he's a short hitter. If he gets the bad wind, it could be trouble. You go after a Nico Echeverria, who's been playing well, better lately, but he's very difficult to predict. I wouldn't really take anyone off of this unless you were thinking about like a Tristan Lawrence, who contended here last year and has played pretty well of late. Maybe a little too much. Maybe a little too much to go after that. Maybe, again, another kind of top 20 play you could like this week. There's a lot of top 20 plays you're going to like this week. Some horses for courses, guys that you just should remember played pretty well here. Shane Lowry won here. Rory McIlroy shot the course record here when he was 15 or 16, the 61. John Rahm has played Irish golf very well and played pretty well here in 2019. Tommy Fleetwood was the runner-up in 19. Justin Thomas played well here. Tony Finau, as mentioned, played well here. We don't have, obviously, multiple opens in this era here to look at. We have one in the modern era, two prior, the other's 1951. So we don't really have much to work off of here. Irish links golf is a different challenge than Scottish, is a different challenge than Welsh, is a different challenge than English links golf. But Irish links golf tends to kind of have higher mounding, tends to have more movement around the greens elevation wise. It's just a little bit of a different style. So I wouldn't necessarily take a whole lot of stock out of people who play well in the Open at other venues in the Rota, but we're going to talk about that. First, let's talk about some guys who just have multiple top 15 finishes in the last 6 PGA Tour events played, including the Oppo at ISCO. We really don't have many of them in this field. But you got Scotty Scheffler, Cam Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, Ben Griffin, Harry Hall, Tyrrell Hatton. That's more related to his LIV plus U.S. Open. Russell Henley, Victor Hovland, Chris Kirk, Tristan Lawrence, Denny McCarthy, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm again, his LIV stuff, and JJ Spawn. I was kind of surprised there weren't more people, but there are some events where guys were taken off in that span between the U.S. Open and here, so there wasn't quite as much golf played by these players. But still, these are guys who are playing well currently. And some of the higher finishes are from players who are playing against weaker competition. Denny McCarthy played well against a strong field and a weak field. Do you value that the same? No, definitely not. But a good finish is a good finish. And his good finish of the John Deere Classic came against basically the best field they've ever had. Past champions here of the Open Championship, going back all the way to 2019, Xander Schauffele, Brian Harman, Cam Smith, Colin Morikawa. COVID-19 won in 2020. They didn't have the event. Shane Lowry. So cool week to be able to celebrate Shane Lowry. But if you look at the players who have won this, you don't have to be a bomber to win this championship. You need to be a ball striker more than anything. You need to be able to hit pure shots in any kind of conditions. You need to have an imagination. You need to kind of have a shot that'll get you through those random lies of high heather and be able to bump and run it. There's a lot of skill set and imagination that goes here. You can't just hit stock shots all day. If you do, then you played it perfectly. And that does happen sometimes, but it doesn't typically. Now, this is the graphic that blew me away because we do a short-term form kind of model. And it's not really a model. It's just a comparison of statistics of the last 10 PGA Tour events played. And we look at strokes gained total, strokes gained of the aggregate. If you're gaining 1.2 strokes per round on the average, you fit in that first column. If you are gaining 1.5 strokes per round in terms of quality strokes gained, that's the strokes gained total multiplied by the quality of your competition as measured by the official World Golf Ranking, then you qualify for that. And then the third category that's separate is strokes gained on the approach. I'm looking at guys who are playing well on the approach, because that is the most important component of determining your ability to finish well. Driving goes a long way, absolutely. But as this year has triple underscored, it's not everything. If you look at guys in terms of strokes gained off the team, driving distance that won on the PGA Tour, and Brian Campbell is, one of those guys, right? Then that as a two-time winner this year, you're not convinced that you have to be a bomber to do well on this golf course or any golf course on the PGA Tour this year. So I think that is the most important of the skills. You can be bad at putting for a while and get it back. You can be off with the driver for a while and still gain strokes. So if you're gaining strokes off the tee, you don't have to do that just by hitting it straight. You can hit it long and slightly crooked and still gain a lot of strokes, right? So that doesn't tell you everything. And I also think off the tee this week in particular, we usually don't talk about this, but off the tee in particular, the fairways are pretty wide. So if you're not hitting fairways and you're hitting in the heather and high stuff, it's going to be a rough week for you anyway. Looking at this list, this is about half the players who qualified for all these categories. Now, these are all in order, right? They're all in descending order. So these are the highest numbers. Carlos Ortiz doesn't really play on the PGA Tour much, but obviously had a very nice U.S. Open. He fits on that list. But then you look at guys who are playing just great golf, and there's a solid number of them, and a lot of them carry over because a lot of their good golf happened at the U.S. Open or the Travelers Championship, which are high point value events. So I would stress the strokes gained total graphic and the approach graphic are the more important ones to me. So let's do total. The top half of the list: Carlos Ortiz, Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Marco Penge. Obviously, we only have the one start for him. Ben Griffin, Aldrich Potgieter, Bryson DeChambeau, Victor Hovland, Keegan Bradley, Christopher Rattan, set a very nice Scottish Open, Harry Hall, Chris Goddard, who just won the Scottish Open, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Russell Henley. And then the guys who are gaining strokes on the approach, not quite as much crossover as you might think here, but you've got Carlos Ortiz, Matteo Manacero, Joaquin Niemann. Niemann is a great ball striker, but if he can't put the ball in play, you're doo-doo. And that's kind of basically his season on LIV, where he's won 4 times and stunk the others. Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry hitting the ball well, but not putting well. Jon Rahm, Sahith Theegala, who comes back after a 2-month absence, basically to deal with his neck issues. So hopefully he's feeling good. Could be a super mega sleeper. Sebastian Soderberg, Victor Hovland, who keeps playing great golf. Kind of somewhat under the radar, even though he keeps finishing high. Akshay Bhatia, Dean Burmester, Potgieter, who keeps gaining on the approach, and I think is another compelling reason to bet him at 200-1. Daniel Van Tonder and Christopher Rattan. So we've got and that's just the top half of this list. If you're a member of Golf Newsnet and you check out our tools that are available to members for $40 a year, $70 for 2 years, or $100 for 3 years, you will see there are another 14 guys on basically each of these lists that qualify for these categories. So we've got a lot of players playing bettable, in my view, golf this week. Makes it tough to kind of go after a winner. Strokes gained tee to green leaders, low variance. I love this graphic. I love talking about this because I'm looking for smooth curves. I don't want lots of dips, highs and peaks and valleys in how you play strokes gained tee to green. I want to know you are a reliable player, strokes gained tee to green, that if you just have a good week putting, you can win. Those guys on this list in this field are Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Keegan Bradley, Bryson DeChambeau, Tommy Fleetwood, and Siwoo Kim got in as an alternate. So he's kind of intriguing in that regard. He's become much more of a consistent player over the years, especially the last couple of years. So these guys are players who just tend to gain a lot of strokes tee to green. They might not do well putting, but this leads me to believe you're probably going to be there. If you're playing well tee to green, you got a chance. If you can putt well, then you've really got a chance. But you've got the most important kind of 85% of the strokes gained coming from strokes gained tee to green. You've got that covered. This is a long list too. In the last 50 PGA Tour events played, so we're taking out the LIV guys here, if you finished in the top 20, 40% of the time or better, there are 25 guys on this list. I'm not going to read them all to you, but it does go in chronological or descending order. Scotty Scheffler is at like 83%, 84%. Justin Thomas is barely above 40%. These are guys that I think are particularly interesting for your top 20 plays. As you get to like a Bobby Mack, maybe that's a good hedge for you. Do you look after like a Ben Griffin with a higher number, Denny McCarthy with a higher number tends to kind of just play his way into the top 20. Andrew Novak, a high number. Some guys in the field here this week they're worth looking at for top 20 plays, given how often they do it in the aggregate, but not necessarily just because of this course or this place this week. So just something worth keeping in mind. We didn't do anything about the first round leaders here for a couple of different reasons. One, we only really have the 2019 data for Portrush. And then also, I just think the weather variability that you could expect to see tomorrow is going to be pretty dramatic. So if you are an early riser, I would bet this live. If you want to do this ahead of time, don't do it. I'm not going to give you any recommendation, but I would tell you, if you're going to bet first round leader tomorrow, do it. Get up at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, maybe even 2 a.m. Eastern time, and go seek out what the weather conditions are, seek out what the expected 6 to 10 hour forecast is going to be. Decide if the morning wave is what you want to go after or the afternoon wave, then plan accordingly and see what you like after that. That's going to do it for us on this episode and for the week in preparation for the Open Championship. We covered the Barracuda Championship in our first episode of the week, an audio-only episode, so hopefully you'll check that out wherever you get your podcasts. You can get a hold of me, Ryan, at thegolfnewsnet.com, or I'm on social media at Ryan Ballingy or Ryan Ballingy Golf, depending on the service. And you can join Golf Newsnet for $40 for 1 year, $70 for 2 years, or $100 for 3 years at golfnewsnet.com. The video version of this show is available on our apps for Amazon Fire and Roku TV. You can also catch us on Golf Newsnet TV, which airs on Free Live Sports, Zeem, and Freecast, soon coming to Distro TV and some other services that we'll be announcing soon. I'm Ryan Ballingy. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, whether live, on video, or on audio after the fact. Good luck with all your bets this week. Enjoy one of the best weeks of the year with Breakfast Golf. Have a great time at the Open Championship.